Good morning, guys. Today is the day where I'm playing the match. I still didn't. I'm still not fully sure, but I think I'm playing against Rasmus Svane, German Grandmaster, always around 26-30. Very solid player and very strong as well. So really looking forward to be able to play that match. And yeah, I just finished giving a chess lesson from 10 to 11. Now it's shortly after 11 a.m. I'm just finishing up my editing for yesterday's video, or I don't know when when you will see this, but I did record a recap for the play-ins, which happened on Wednesday. Today's Thursday. So yeah, then I will have some preparation with my coach for the match. I just wanna sort out my openings and prepare what I'm playing for the match. Since there's also some money on the line, I think if I win this match, like I did last time, then I'm already winning $1,500. I'm not sure. I have to check if I win anything at all if I lose that match. But yeah, hopefully we don't need to have that discussion. But yeah, I'm not sure yet if I will be doing some sort of exercise before the game as well. I would definitely like to. Maybe I'll do some cardio on the bike. Yeah, we'll see. But I'll talk to you guys later. So see you then. I just wanted to give you a brief overview on how my preparation usually goes. So for this event, I prepared like 2 hours, I think, before this match against Rasmus Svane. I try in general not to prepare too much, because if you are just sitting before the game like 5 hours and are just checking your opponent, then you won't have any energy for the game. Many even grandmasters are doing this. They're just preparing all day long, but I think it's not the right approach. So I was checking for only like 2 hours, I think. And what I didn't mention, for those of you who don't know, there is this software called ChessBase, which I think almost all chess professionals use. And there you can find basically all of your opponent's games, and you take them and then just browse through them, what they've played in the past, and therefore are more likely to play against you as well. And yeah, I was just trying to find how to possibly surprise my opponent, which positions he's not feeling that comfortable. And yeah, I'm in general a very flexible player when it comes to openings. So yeah, other people, they can only play 1 or 2 openings, but I can play with white also all of the moves on the first move, basically. So I can be quite flexible and just choose the right opening against my opponent. So that's what I usually do. And yeah, just wanted to give you a brief overview on how my preparation before the game usually looks. Welcome back, guys. I'm finished with my workout and with the contrast shower. By the way, that's what I think it's called, a contrast shower. So you start with hot, and then in the end you just go to super cold water, which is really useful for me personally, because I also like to go in the sauna, but I don't have a sauna at home. So as far as I know, these contrast showers are kind of imitating the feeling you would get from a sauna session. So I really like that, especially for recovery after workout and just general well-being. So yeah, finished my workout, finished all other things. Now I'm just sitting here, and I will finish my preparations. The match is starting in 1.5 hours. So yeah, but I feel fresh for the match overall. Just need to check a few more things. But overall, I'm feeling in pretty good shape. Also yesterday, I felt like I'm able to play good chess. So I hope it will be the same today. And yeah, I think that's it. So I guess I'll see you after the match. What's up, guys? I just finished my match. Unfortunately, today was not my day. I lost the match 2.5 to 1/2. So I lost the first 2 games, as we will see. Especially, I mean, both of them were very unfortunate. So the match just didn't go my way. It happens. There are days where everything doesn't go right. But shout out to my opponent, who I think played a very good match. He didn't make any mistakes at all, I believe. So yeah, he's very experienced, especially when it comes to online chess. So yeah, I'm not very upset about it. It can happen. But yeah, let's jump right into the games. In the first game, I had the black pieces,
And he surprised me a bit by going c4. Usually he goes for knight f3 or d4. But anyway, I stick with my repertoire, knight f6, knight c3, and now I go e5. The point with this move further is that if I go e5 right away, white doesn't always have to develop the knight, and this g3 line can be a bit annoying after knight f6, bishop g2. Now if d5, I don't get the same line. I would like to play in the other move order. So I go e5 now, knight f3, knight c6, and here again he surprised me with this move e4. What I was mentioning before, after g3 now I have this extra option to go bishop g2, bishop c5, which is supposed to be a very solid line for black. But he went e4, and here, being surprised, I went for this sideline h6. I never analyzed it, but I saw it somewhere. The point is, if white goes d4 now, I get bishop b4, and this move h6 is actually very useful, often because white has some bishop g5 ideas at some point. Point is, after d takes e5, I think knight takes e4, and yeah, black is already better. The pin is unpleasant for white. So he shouldn't go for this. Instead, he went for this move a3, which I think is also the main move. The point is now d4 is white's idea, and now I go d6. So now I could have played d6 right away, but instead of h6. But this inclusion of h6 and a3 probably favors me, since a3 is not always that useful. And now he went bishop e2, which is not the main move. The main move is d4. This is what I recalled. Bishop g4, d5, and now I think it was... it's knight d4 and this sort of position, which the engine gives slightly better for white, but it's definitely playable. I will go something like bishop e7. If h3, I will go back with the bishop. And then I have all sorts of plans. First one being to break out with f5. The other one is sometimes knight h7, knight g5 to trade some pieces, since I have less space. So yeah, I would have been quite happy playing this position, but he went for bishop e2. And here I went bishop g4. In hindsight, I thought about this move here, g5, which maybe is at least interesting, because now I always have some g4 ideas. But I didn't really like my position after h3 that much, because now bishop g7, let's say, d3, and I always have this weakness on f5. Still, the position is playable. In the game, I thought about this plan with knight d7 and then knight c5, knight e6 to take control of the d4 square, but I wanted to have a more solid approach, and therefore I played bishop g4. I also thought about that maybe I could go g6, but here I didn't like d4, when he will probably get some type of King's Indian position where a3 is also quite useful, and h6 can actually be a target in some positions. Instead, yeah, I played bishop g4. This was logical, because now I'm stopping d4. He went d3, and after g6, here h3. Now he played h3. If he would have castled, I would probably have castled as well. Yeah, engine also doesn't give that much here. So I think h3 was logical. Now he gets the bishop here, but after knight d4, I'm already ready to take it back. He went g3. And here I was a bit scared that he will keep the bishop pair with bishop g2. The computer is not that scared. He just goes something like h5. And yeah, if bishop g2, I guess the point is h4 now, creating some weaknesses. And if h4, I could also think about taking now, or knight g4 is also in the air. So yeah, the computer likes to keep the pressure here, but I went to trade, and now I went knight d7. If castle immediately, I thought about this, but here I thought that maybe this could be dangerous. Something like g4, knight d7, h4 is what I thought during the game, when white will castle long, and it looks a bit dangerous for me. So I went knight d7 first. Also, I felt that maybe c6 is the correct plan, c6 and d5, but I thought it's not easy for me to push this, because it will take a lot of time. So I went knight d7, now he went h4, h5, bishop g5, I went bishop f6. I don't want to play f6 in general, because now he just goes back, and then my bishop is blocked out on g7. So I went bishop f6. Now, if he trades on f6, I don't think he achieved much. Yeah, if he goes for the endgame, the position is just equal. And if he moves the queen, something like knight c5, then knight e6, knight d4, I think black should be more or less okay. So he went back to e3, I repeated moves, and now he went for long castle, playing for the win, knight c5, and king b1, just stepping out of this check on b3. Now knight e6, knight e2, and queen e7, and here he went for g4, which kind of surprised me, but it was actually not easy to find the correct answer to this. I thought that he would play for either f4 or d4, but d4 right away, I thought I could take and at least castle or have some knight c5 ideas, when also the pawn on e4 could be a weakness. So yeah, he went for g4, and now I took, which apparently is not the most accurate move. I also thought about long castle, when in the game I wasn't sure about knight g3 here, and here I kind of stopped calculating. But yeah, I do have queen f6, and now this pawn on g6 is actually good for me because the knight can never jump into f5. So I stopped a bit too early here. Instead, I took on g4, queen g4, and just now long castle. But this position is quite unpleasant for me. Computer says it's equal, but I always have this weakness on f5. So I played rook h8, queen g4, and now king b8, still around equal. I just step out of this pin. Bishop h6 would be nice for me, but I did not see what to do after rook h1. I have this nice idea with queen f8. Okay, that's cool. And if I manage to exchange these bishops, then I shouldn't be in any trouble at all. But I went king b8, knight g3, and yeah, now I got into some trouble. Queen f6, he went knight f5. Apparently knight h5 is even stronger, when here in this endgame I will probably even lose the g-pawn by force. Just rook g6 coming. So knight h5 is something we both missed. Instead, I should do something like bishop f6, but still my position feels a bit uncomfortable. He went for knight f5, bishop f8. Now I'm already quite passive, just b6. And here he went for bishop g5, which surprised me a bit. I thought he could go something like b4 even, and just gain space on the queen side, b5, maybe a4, a5, when I don't actually have that many moves here. So I think this would be a better practical decision. But he went for bishop g5, and now I went for this endgame, thinking that it shouldn't be that bad at all. Of course, white is the one trying to play for something, but I'm pretty solid overall as well. I went king e6 here. Maybe immediate rook h1 is something the computer always also says, and then to bring the bishop in with h6. But I was already quite low on time, so I just went king e6, bishop e7, and now I put the bishop on f6, which felt a bit more active than on f8, which I guess you can argue about as well. b4, a6. Now he gained space on the queen side. Now c6. So this was all pretty much all right. Now b5. Also, I could have gone d5 right away, but I just didn't want to allow him to go b5 himself. Now rook a1. I took d5, and now I again managed to equalize, but it was still not so easy. After f3, now I guess I could go for something more active. Maybe rook h8 is also a move. And then rook h2. The computer also says d4, which, yeah, I totally missed that he cannot go rook c1. So this makes a lot of sense because I'm simply coming in with the rook. Rook c8, rook c2 is coming with counterplay. But I was already a bit panicking and just took on e4, which still is all right. But now we reached this endgame, which is a draw, and I defended, I think, very well for a very long time. But in the end, it was already, I was so sure that it was a 3-time repetition because the position always looked so similar. But yeah, the critical moment came here. Let me just go there. So as you can see, we both moved around forever. I still don't understand how it cannot be a 3-time repetition. But yeah, here was already the start. King d6 was a move that was not good at all, because now knight f6 comes, and at least practically speaking, it's already a bit unpleasant. And here I just blundered king c5 and knight d7, and I resigned. What's way easier is just to go king e7 and then just to wait. Again, king e6, now I'm pretty sure it would be 3-time repetition. So after king e7, I think the game would have ended in a draw. King d6 is still a draw. After knight f6, I can even go king e6 back. Like, I was just panicking. I had no time on the clock. And if knight d5 now, I can just move the bishop, and then f5 is coming. Maybe bishop d8 is a bit better. Because if b6 now, I can simply take and go f5, and everything is exchanging, and it's a draw. So yeah, that was a bit unfortunate, but yeah, nothing I can do. Then the second game, I had the white pieces, and again, I lost pretty unnecessarily. I was white. I went for the Catalan. I prepared something here just to play this position. He basically always goes for this line. And bishop e4, bishop d5 I was a bit surprised because usually he goes for knight bd7 here. But this is also one of the lines. Queen c2, bishop e4, queen c1. This is still more or less theory. And here I went for knight d2, thinking that I checked it. I also think that I still checked it because after knight c3, I thought that here he's able to take on d4, when here he has enough counterplay with his very active pieces. So I think knight d2 is something I still checked. And here we went bishop c6. Now I was really out of book. Bishop f3 was the move I saw, and this position, which is very solid for black, but white is usually a bit better due to the central advantage. So I just briefly checked bishop takes f3, but he went bishop c6, now rook d1, and a5, knight c4. I also briefly thought about queen c3, which maybe is the better idea, because I simply want to stop knight a6, knight b4, because now if he goes knight a6, I can take the pawn. So maybe this is the better way. I went knight c4 instead with the same idea. I cannot go knight a6 because of knight takes a5. But he simply went bishop d5. And now I don't have e4 anymore. If I would go queen c3 first, then after bishop d5, I have e4. So this would have been a more accurate to start with queen c3. But yeah, now he played bishop d5, queen c2, knight c6. And here again, maybe I should have gone for e4 when after knight b4, queen e2, this sort of position, and black probably goes c6. When, again, black is very solid, but it's usually white who can try something here. I will just put my rooks to d2 and d1. Black can just wait, and I will slowly maybe gain space on the king side. And yeah, maybe a slightly more pleasant position for white. But I went e3, knight b4, queen e2, bishop e4, now rook c1. We repeated once. And also here, I could have gone for the draw, of course, but I was already down by 1 point and therefore decided to play on. Bishop g2, so knight d1, just exchanging bishops, queen e7, now knight f4. This was all good until here. Rook d8, now I got knight h4, knight h5. I think I played this very well. And here, maybe I have a slight advantage. Computer says rook c1 first. Here I didn't understand what I do here after knight a2, knight b4. Rook c3, and now I have rook b3. Okay, that's nice. And if knight b4, I have knight takes a5. So again, b3 probably not that accurate. I still don't get what happens after rook d5 now. Now I get knight e5, and I have already control of the c file. Because in the game I played b3, rook d5, and if I go knight e5 now, I thought that he has c5 here. Yeah, and he's just equalizing. So I played rook c1, rook d8, and now again I was already running low on time, so my time management was not optimal at all. Knight c6, king g2, h5. He could have gone for e5 as well, but yeah, I thought this would just be a draw here. I think everything is exchanging. There's nothing much happening here and should be a draw. But he went h5 instead, and now I played knight d2. Again, I was playing way too slow here. I only had 7 seconds, which then, yeah, just was a disaster because I just blundered everything. Knight e4 and queen f3. Now I already have some advantage objectively, but here knight c3 is probably the wrong plan. I should go knight c5, and after e takes d4, knight takes b7. I don't know what I missed here. I guess I was just too low on time in general. And if rook a d7, why can't I take on c6? What am I missing? Rook f5. Wow. And my queen has to step back, and then queen e4 is coming. Okay. So here e4 is strong, and knight e5, queen f4, and apparently here I'm already winning the exchange. But still, black is somewhat okay, because he has the active knight on e5, he will play c5, pawn on b3 is a weakness. Quite a nice variation here. I went for knight c3, rook d7, and now d5, but now after knight b4, he just equalized and even can play for something more. c6 now. I took, and now very strong move, which I, again, did not see at all, b takes c6. Ruining his pawn structure, but he gets control of the d5 square. If he plays knight c6, the position is probably just equal, because I will get my knight to d5 with a totally symmetrical position. He took on c6, and now I played rook d1, and again rook d4, and this was already rook d4, excellent move. Because now if I take, always e takes d4 when, yeah, this pawn on d4 is just very strong. I don't want to do that. I panicked again with queen e2, and yeah, after c5 again, I had no time and just made some random move. The computer points out here that knight b1 is probably the only way to save the game. The idea is after c5 to have knight a3 when the knight is coming to c4. So very instructive moment. Knight b1, obviously close to impossible to find if you only have seconds on the clock. I went queen e2, and yeah, now everything is just lost. I had some small hopes here after knight c3 in this endgame, but again, I was way too low on time, and then I blundered again here. I even lost on time. Here I could have tried a4, because after knight takes a5, queen e5 is a draw, because I pick up the knight. But I think my best chance was to go for something else here. Maybe queen e5, where the queen is centralized, and if knight c6 now, I guess I can go queen d5, when this endgame should actually be a draw. Because my king is just so active and is coming in. So queen e5 would have been a better try, when it's still not entirely obvious how black would win this. Of course, he's much better, but yeah, this was kind of my last chance. And in this position, I just lost on time here. So again, I think a pretty well-played game overall, but here also the time management, like in the first game, just costed me the point. In the third game, which was a must-win game for me, obviously having the black pieces, it's also not easy to play for a win, but I tried my best. I went for knight f3, d5, g3, g6. Maybe not the best choice, but I prepared this line before the games, so I just thought I would stick to it. It is very symmetrical, but what usually happens if white plays for a draw too much, then he can often get into trouble. You also see this in the Petrov sometimes, when white is just trying to achieve a draw at all costs, and it often goes wrong. So this was kind of my strategy, just to stay solid and hope for him to make some mistakes and to play for the draw too much. But he still played, I think, pretty well. He went for the c3 line, which I think he also played quite often. I went knight d7. I still somewhat knew this, a4, a5. By the way, if I go c6 here, white's plan is just, let's say black copies everything, white goes rook e1, and then he goes e4 when, let's say rook e8, e4 now, and white has a nice advantage because here he just has better control of the center. So this is white's strategy in this line. I knew this, so I went a5, rook e1, and now c6. I also thought about b6 here, but wasn't sure about c4 now. So I didn't like this, which because after d takes c4 now, he gets knight e5 with all sorts of troubles along this diagonal. I went c6, knight d2, and only now I went c5. Why not c5 right away? Because I thought then white gets knight a3 when the knight comes to b5. So this knight on d2 is actually worse for him in this sort of structure. Now b3, b6, bishop b2, bishop b7, and I did equalize here, but the position is obviously still very dry. Now rook c7, I think also a nice idea. Maybe again not the best. Maybe e6 followed by queen e7 is objectively better. But I just thought if he goes something like c4 now, it looks very very drawish because everything will just exchange, and yeah, it's just a symmetrical position. So I went for this plan, and now queen a8. This was the whole point, because the queen supports the bishop, and sometimes I have some pressure on this diagonal. He went knight e5, now rook d8. I didn't want to take yet, because I was actually trying to avoid this sort of position, which then later in the game I anyway went for, because I didn't see anything better. So I went rook d8 first, queen e2, and now objectively, of course, this is correct, taking a knight e4. But from a winning perspective, again, maybe not the best choice. Maybe I could have tried something like d takes c4. Takes here, and in the game I thought knight d takes c4. And yeah, it's still far from easily convertible for me. Maybe c takes d4. And okay, here at least he has to take e d4, because bishop d4 runs into knight e4. And here I have some pressure. Also knight g5 is an idea. So this would have been the better try from a winning perspective, I think, taking on c4 here. But I went for knight takes e5, d takes e5, knight e4, takes, and now obviously the position is very symmetrical. I still had some hopes to have rook d1 and now rook d3, and maybe I get control of the d file, and maybe the e5 pawn could be weak, because now he cannot take here, because here I'm just winning the piece on g2, and if he takes on b7, then I can take here, and if he takes the queen, I'm simply promoting and winning. So yeah, this was kind of my hope, but instead he went e6 here, and f takes e6, bishop g7, king g7, queen b2 check. I think a very nice resource, because after queen e5 now he's just very active, and the pawn on e4 is also weak. I went for queen d8 after some thought. Rook d6 I also thought about. just to consolidate, but I didn't really see how to continue here. Didn't really see the plan. Let's say white goes for something like h4, and yeah, computer says queen f8, when I didn't see why this should be any better for me. I mean, I do have the control of the d file, so maybe something like queen g7 or king g7 followed by queen f6. Yeah, shouldn't be anything much, of course, but maybe a better try than what I played in the game. I played queen d8, which set up a nice trap because he cannot take on e4 now, because I have rook d1, takes, king g2, and now queen d6. This was my calculation. And if he takes here, now I have the intermediate check, f3, I take, and this pawn endgame is just winning because I'm just a pawn up. But of course he didn't fall for it. Instead he went queen e4 check, king e8, and only now he took. And yeah, went for rook d1 and this endgame after queen b3. But again, I think here he found the best defense just with giving check, and after king g7, now to go queen b7. And yeah, I repeated a couple of times, and now I tried taking this pawn, but here he just has perpetual check. And I didn't want to go king h6 because here obviously I would already be losing, because queen f8 check and king h5, and my king is just getting mated somehow, queen g7 for example. So it wouldn't be that nice as well to lose the match 3-0, especially considering that I actually think I played good games. Just the time management was the issue. So I really need to work on that for the future matches. But yeah, I'm happy to have got some more experience against a very strong player, and I'm really looking forward to the future events. These type of events are a lot of fun. It's very competitive, and I really hope in the future I'll be able to perform better, to reach a later stage in the KO stage. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this recap. Unfortunately, the event is over now. Let me know in the comments what type of content you want to see in the future. Other than that, thank you for watching and see you next time.